Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Living to Do Married at First Sight Review, Season 13, Episode 14, Country Chaos. A better title for this would have been Backwoods Mania, and we'll get into that a little bit later. First, we'll talk about Rachel and Jose, and there's not really much to say. I really didn't even realize they were there most of the time. But I really don't have nothing to say. All I can say about them, they were the second to arrive to the retreat. And they had a good time doing the little activities. They played cornhole. And they got along well. They left on a good note. So there's nothing else to say about them. I'm happy for them. The next I will talk about Bao and Johnny. At the start of the show, they show Johnny walking through the apartment, coming out of the second bedroom, and it looks like the bedroom in there has a twin bed, which I thought was odd. So either you sleep in the full bed, it's only a full bed, it looks like, with your spouse, or you can get in the second bedroom to a twin bed. I can understand why some people wouldn't want to go home then. But so Johnny and Bao are the fourth to arrive at the retreat. They do not share a room. Bao doesn't want to sleep with Johnny. She hasn't been, and she wasn't going to do it there. She's in the prickly pear room. Bao was the head chef for the couples there. She was cooking. They showed her cooking. They only showed her one time cooking, but I guess maybe she did most of the cooking. I know Jose did some grilling, but not much really happened to them. They kind of kept separate. When they finally left the resort in the car ride home, you only saw Bao speak of Michaela and Zach and their issues. But Bao really enjoyed herself there. She did the activities and she really had a good time. She did the skeet shooting with Ryan. And I don't think she's ever done it before, but she had a positive attitude, and that little body of hers shooting that gun and backfiring, or that kickback, whatever you call that, she had a good time, and she wasn't going to let no one stop her from enjoying herself. I love that about Bao. Even Johnny said later he liked to see her enjoy herself, and she should. She shouldn't let her life pass her by because somebody else is a Debbie Downer and trying to drag her down. She's lifting herself up, and she's doing what she needs to do. She kept level one conversations with Johnny, which seems to work. They're just going to be friends, if that. She had a great weekend, and she's had a great weekend with Johnny because she didn't really interact with him. So that's why it turned out to be a good weekend. I mean, Bao was a good sport, and she had a good time. I can't say nothing bad about Bao. I'm thankful that she was there. I don't know why I'm thankful, but... Okay, let's talk about Gil and Mirla. They were the third to arrive at the retreat, and they went around looking at the rooms, and Mirla noticed that she has to share a bathroom with the others. Of course, she had something to say about that, and I do too. If I go somewhere, I want my own everything, but when she does it, it's just magnified. Gil and Mirla, they did a couple's activity, which was horseback riding. And Gil's not, he had a good attitude about riding the horse. I guess he has a little trepidation about it, but he had a much better attitude than Vincent from last season. But Gil got his big ass on that horse. I thought that horse's knees would buckle because he's so big. I don't know how many pounds a horse can carry on their back like that. I mean, I felt bad for that horse. I thought you're going to break that horse's third and fourth vertebrae. But they went riding. Mirla wanted to ride too. She wanted to ride a little bit longer and a little bit faster. Gil didn't want to ride that fast. He was just comfortable at the speed he was at. When Mirla tells this to Gil after the ride, Gil seems a little perturbed with her, complaining so much. And he tells her that you sound like a brat when you are not being cooperative. And it gets under his skin a little bit. Can't something just be fun? Not fun, but this, fun, but that. Just be fun. And she said it was fun. And he also asked her, are you okay with me saying that to you? I love that about Gil. I mean, there's so much that I love about Gil. And he asked her right in that moment, and she said that she received it. And she later said in the confessional that she does take what he says into account, and she makes changes in her personality or whatever he wants done. I just hope it isn't production making Gil irritated about negative Mirla, or if he's just really irritated with her brattiness. That remains to be seen, but really not much happened with them. They seem like they had a good time. Things seem to be working well, and I don't know if I'm happy about it, but there wasn't much more to say about them. Currently, I have just 5. Okay, let's talk about Brett and Ryan. They're driving to the retreat or the resort or the barn. And they have a little conversation in the car. And Brett's doing most of the talking. It almost seems like Ryan wasn't listening. He didn't have a lot of conversation back to her. Seems like she was doing most of the talking. And she tells him that she spoke with his sister, and she was trying to get some insight to who Brian was. And Brett said that his sister alluded to the fact that maybe, not a fact, but she did say that possibly he might be seeing somebody else. And that kind of made sense to Brett because of his actions. But then Ryan got defensive about that a little bit. And so I guess there's not another person out there, but it was weird how he just was defensive about this when this conversation took place. They were the last to arrive at the retreat. When they get there, Bao and Johnny and Ryan and Brett talk about where they were going to sleep. Apparently, there's 5 couples, but there's 6 bedrooms. So Johnny and Ryan did rock, paper, scissors to see who would get the extra bedroom, and Johnny won, and Ryan was going to sleep on the couch. He really thought he was going to sleep with with Brett. Interesting, because I'm conflicted. He wasn't sleeping with her at the apartment. I don't think he ever slept with her at the apartment. I think he slept with her on the honeymoon. So all this time you haven't been sleeping with her. I know they're going to a retreat. I don't know what Brett thought he was going to do. Was he going to sleep on the floor if there wasn't an extra room or another place for him to stay? But then again, I think they should have a conversation, because Ryan just assumed he was sleeping in the same bed with her. And you haven't been good to this girl. You haven't indicated an interest in this girl. You really should ask a woman if it's okay to sleep with her if you're not in a real relationship with her. And that hasn't been the case up until this point. So you assumed a lot. And I thought maybe later he said something about her causing a scene. And I'm thinking, did you want to save face in front of the other couples and just assume you were going to sleep in that room? Um, I can see how he assumed because they're going to a retreat where they have a bedroom. But then again, you really should ask to sleep in a bed with a woman who you're not in a real relationship with. And I don't know what Brett said or thought. They didn't have that conversation, so they had it at the last moment. They did spend some time together. Brett said he was going to try harder with Brett, and that was his intention, especially at the retreat. While Brett seemed to be pulling back, he noticed because his heart's not in it, and she's given her all to him. They have a sit down. Brett wants to know, not Brett, Ryan wants to know what the plan of action is. His actions, she says, and his words are confusing. His actions act like he doesn't want to try, but his words say he says he wants to try. So that's very conflicting to Brett. She doesn't know how he truly feels, and she's given her all. And they've been civil up to now. She's like really speaking up a little bit more with a little umph in her voice, and she's talking to him and telling him that she's the kind of person that she gives to people. She respects their boundaries and she does everything she can do for that person. And she neglects herself and her feelings and her wants and her needs. And she says now until she breaks, and now she's broke. And, he just doesn't, I don't know. Maybe he's not a type of person to comfort somebody else. The rest of the couples were very, very nice to her. On their first night there, they got this big box of cookies shaped like a dog bone because she lost her dog Baxter, and everybody gave that to her. And they also had these sparklers that they lit up in honor of Baxter, and they showed a montage of Baxter playing with Maisie, Ryan's dog. So I know, and she said a few words, and it was Johnny that had the box. I don't know if, I'm sure it wasn't his idea at all. It was production, but it was really nice thing to do to honor the dog and her feelings, because she's going through a hard time. She recently got married. She lost her dog, and the partner that she's married to doesn't seem to be interested in her. I don't know what he has done to console her about her dog. They didn't really show that, and neither one of them said it. They all feel a loss, but what did he really do for her? Did he comfort her at all? Ryan just seems very cold-hearted in that way. But Brett, such a big heart. And that, when she says that she does everything for everybody else and ignores others, she did that. Even when her dog died, the day the dog died, she still made plans and acted like a sweet wife, a companion, or on a sweet date with Ryan. And I don't know if Ryan would have done the same for her, and that's sad. Before we get to Zach and Michaela, let's talk about the couples and their interaction with one another as a group. Or first they had the girls split up and the guys split up. And Ryan is talking about trying harder with Brett while on this weekend getaway. And he mentions to the guys that this was his time to try harder and sleep in the same bed with Brett. And Zach asks, well, what is so different? Why couldn't you have done that pretty much at home in the apartment? And Ryan has to think on it, and he's a good question, because you can start trying harder at any time. And a good time to do that would have been in your own space at home, than to assume that you're going to sleep in a bed with someone who you haven't been very, very nice to. The girls talk, and Bao talks about, she had a self-revelation, that she devalued herself being with Johnny. She yielded to what he wanted. And she remembered a time when she was little and her parents had a terrible, I guess, fight. And she thought she would never, ever act like that, or let a man do that to her. And she's waking up out of this cloud of this marriage and this opportunity that she has, that it's not the best thing for her. Her parents are still married. They've been married for 50 years. And Bao's only 34, so they had Bao when were 16 years of marriage. But Bao, she's great. I mean, she might have her little issues, but I think overall she's a great person, and I think this was great for the girls to hear, and I think this is good for other people to hear. This woman seems like she's really, maybe she has done some therapy. She's open, she's insightful on herself and her, her, even things that are not positive about her, she's open about it, and I really like that about Bao. She talks things through. There was a conversation with just Bao and Michaela, and Michaela was crying to Bao, or they had a conversation and she started crying, and she was saying how Michaela and Zach weren't getting along, and Michaela is telling this to Bao, and Bao saying that their egos are getting in the way, which they are. Also, mainly Michaela's. And Michaela says that she has abandonment issues. And so Bao asks, well, then why do you push him away? They had a little heart-to-heart, and they hugged. Bao was really good. Now, Bao and Gil are the therapists to the other couples this season. There's a time when also another group setting when Brett and Ryan and Bao and Johnny went skeet shooting, and Brett and Johnny were in the cart, like a golf cart or something that drove them out there, and it seemed like she talked to Johnny more than she talked to her own husband. And that's a combination. I would never see those two ever talking to a scene together. It just seems kind of odd, but what they were talking about, Johnny seemed, he always seems better when he's with other people other than Bao. They had a nice conversation, and Brett was able to open up. They also had a couples game night called Most Likely, and some of the questions were what couple would be the most likely to have kids first. That was Rachel and Jose, because they're the ones who are actually in love and they both want kids. The most likely to go to rehab was Johnny. I guess he had made a snorting sound the day before that triggered that answer for everybody. They said, who is most likely to leave a party? Brett said, everybody should get this answer right, because the answer is Mirla. And again, I'm like Mirla. I would leave a party. In fact, I wouldn't even go to a party. But Mirla was the most likely to leave a party early. Drama queen is Johnny. And Petty was a combination of Rachel and Michaela, which I thought it would have been Jose, because he's the one who locked out Rachel out of the apartment because she called him by another man's name, another cast member's name. That's real petty. Okay, this is okay. Zach and the wild one, Michaela. They start off this episode and they're driving to the retreat. They stop somewhere and they talk, and they look like they're getting along. Everything looks good. Looks good to the cameras. Everybody's getting along. Zach can talk freely and openly. He doesn't seem like he's holding back. They're having fun. They get to some goats, and Zach says goat babies, like that song Throat Babies. It's just being cute. Everything's cool. They're hanging out, feeding the goats. And they're the first ones at the retreat. At the retreat, once everybody else comes, Michaela mentions that she's in a good headspace while talking to the girls, and she was even giving relationship advice. And I'm like, you? Little do they know at that moment who she really is. I mean, you got to really watch who you take advice from, because this girl and the way she acts, she's just seconds away from being committed. I'll just tell her to shut up. She does not know what she's talking about. She's so off the rails. She has a conversation with her, and just her and Zach at one point on the outside on the patio. And Zach, or actually Michaela asked the question to Zach what his idea of marriage is, and he said to be happy most of the time. Everybody wants that. Michaela says that she believes she is the only one trying to make the relationship work or be better, to make things better. I don't know about that. She's just so out there. She's unstable. To think that you're the only one making things work. I can't say he's not doing that, but I don't know what you're doing that's so profound that you believe that you're the only one trying to make this relationship work. They decided, or mainly Zach maybe, to take a break from one another to see if they can make something out of this relationship or get a relationship going with one another. So he wants a divorce, and I think they already knew that they weren't going to stay together. In talking about their relationship, which I don't understand this. He wants a divorce and then try to make the relationship work. And I think she's confused about it, but they seem like they have talked about it, and Zach thought they were on the same page with it, and apparently Michaela was not. And she starts overacting, flipping her hands out, acting really wild. It's almost startling a little bit to have that type of response to what he said. And she runs off, shouting, screaming something like he's confused and he's the one tripping. Clearly, you're the only one. Even if you didn't like what he said, you didn't have to act like that. That's the problem. And he hates her reactions. I do too. They're just downright plumb crazy. He tells her, she settles down, they talk again, and she asked him if he was ready for marriage. He says yes, but not with her. Oh, this man, he's thinking clearly. He's thinking clearly. He says he has no more energy for this. She said, you can get up and go. So he stands up. And then there's the background music at this moment. It's saying, I'm so done chasing you. And I go, that is perfect. That's Chasing You by Until. That song is by Until. The next time we see them together alone is in bed, and they're talking, and he thought that her reaction and the conversation that they had earlier was unacceptable. He thinks there's two different Michaelas. And she says to him, "You can literally go home." She wished she drove herself to the resort because she knew he would act like this. You can leave. You can go. I mean, the thing she says to him, you can leave, you can go. But she doesn't mean it. It's just, she's always doing that. Back when she was talking with Pastor Cal and Zach, she was, she was starting to cry. He was trying to console her. He reached for her. She pulled away. And Pastor Cal told Zach not to pull away because she wants you to reach out for her. And then Pastor Cal asked her, and she said yes, and then he hugged her. So you say one thing and you do another. You play like you don't want him there, but then you do want him there. You do that when you told him to go home. Go home. Go home now. Go. Just go. I don't want you here and all this. And then she wants him to stay. Then she begs him to stay. She involves others to get him to stay. She doesn't she doesn't want him to drive out at night on the countryside, and then she does. They had this big blow up. They are out. Zach leaves. He takes his luggage, and what does she do? She takes the luggage right on back into the room. She says she's petty. These are the petty things. He does not like her. He's miserable with her. He wants to trust his gut and just not have anything to do with her. She's always contradicting herself. She calls her sister even at some point. And after she says she needs a ride from her, Zach takes the phone, says, "I was going to give her a ride." It's just, he doesn't know, he can't understand her if she's coming or going. I mean, it was so crazy. He was trying to leave, and as they leave the room, Bao was looking out of her room at them out of her front door or the bedroom door, seeing this fight go down, looking like Mrs. Kravitz peeking. I mean, she really couldn't get involved. That's their fight. And then Zach finally goes outside and he starts talking to the other couples, and he says goodbye to them. They don't want him to go too. It's too dark. That countryside at night in Texas, that can be very dangerous. It's 11 o'clock at night. I don't know if he's been drinking or if he's sleeping. I think I don't know how far it is, but they indicated, or they alluded to, that the place was further or far from Houston. And there's no street lights out there. It's very dark out there. It's safe just to do that in the morning. They tried to get him to do that, and here comes Michaela. I think they're kind of he's getting on the same page with them, perhaps. And here comes Michaela, and she tries to stop it. And she runs out, and she's begging Ryan to stop it. And Ryan's irritated with her. He goes, "What do you want me to do? Lay in front of the car? He's a grown man. He can go." And she's just mad. I mean, raging mad. And then she enters back in the house, to that apex scene of the season where she is going through that house, throwing things, turning over tables, pushing them, stomping as she's going. I can just imagine what her face looks like. She gets back into her room. And the cameras are following. And there's a producer named Crystal in the room, I guess, talking to her. And the camera comes and she just explodes, screaming, "Get out, get out, get out." Crystal, the producer, is holding her back. And she's kicking and screaming. And she gets to the door and she finally slams the door on the camera. Well, later we hear that Bao And Bao said that Michaela came into her room to try to sleep, but she couldn't sleep, and that her sister, she called her sister to pick her. Her sister picked her up early in the morning. Oh my God, Michaela, you are so crazy. You need you need therapy, but in a lockdown facility. They need to hold you down. How do you feel about the camera exposing your bad behavior? You are something else. 10 minutes. I'm Okay, the final group scene was after the aftermath of Michaela. The next day, the couples have breakfast together outside. They discuss what happened the night before. Apparently, Johnny wasn't aware. I guess he was sleeping somewhere. And though he did hear glass breaking, and Bao and Brett confirmed that she did that Michaela threw a wine glass. So she's breaking glasses in there. If there's major damage in there, they need to bill Michaela because her behavior is unacceptable and she shouldn't get off easy. If you broke anything, she needs to pay for that or take it out of her money that you would have given her. Don't let her get away with that. The only thing I want to note at the breakfast is Mirla. Did anyone notice the martini glass, the martini that she had for breakfast while everybody else is eating breakfast? She's having, she took her 25-cent martinis on the road. Mirla she is a character. So that's about it for this episode. It was very, very entertaining. We knew it was coming down the pike. Michaela and her crazy antics. So I don't know I don't think they're going to recover from this. I just don't think you can. Uh, Zach needs to leave for his own mental health, his gut. He should listen to his gut because he's right. That woman's crazy and you need to be heading the other way. So with that, I'll end the review. I want to thank you all for listening. I would like to ask you all to subscribe and like and maybe share this video. I would really appreciate it. And I thank you in advance for that. Well, that's about it. There was a lot going on, but I'll be back next week. I want to thank you all for stopping by. I got to get going because I got living to do. Thank you. Goodbye.